all their enemies are violent barbarians and yada yada that get elevated to these positions inevitably, because it is the most important goal of American media, Western press in general. It is to align with the American State Department. Any matter of real reporting that they do that seems unceremonious, seems weird in comparison to when they do legitimate reporting and you're like, why are they doing legitimate reporting? This is crazy. This is unique. This is weird. It's because they want to maintain a veneer of objective reporting so they can more successfully conduct propaganda that is aligned with the State Department interests.
Gaza has massively exposed the hypocrisies at the heart of the BBC. The fact that it very much does respond to influence, it very much can be swayed. It does follow the government line broadly on certain stories. The BBC is meant to be a public service. It's meant to be for the people. But at the end of the day, its purse strings are held by the government. And that you can see in the coverage.
The October 7th attack by Hamas, in which more than 1,100 Israelis were killed, almost 800 of them civilians, was the deadliest day in Israel's history. As they launched their retaliation, Israeli officials made clear this was not just a war on Hamas. Everyone in Gaza would be fair game.
I want to mention something here. He's going to say the famous line, we're fighting human beasts. We have to cut their food, electricity, and water off. I also want to mention something here, but like, this was also very frustrating for me to watch the Daily this morning. I was listening to the New York Times Daily, and of course, they did the both sides. Like, let's hear from an Israeli that lives in the kibbutz. I think it was like kibbutz Be'eri, and what his assessment is 1 year out from October 7. And then let's hear from a Palestinian who's in Gaza. And like, no matter how much you try to both sides the situation, it's pretty obvious one side is like significantly more damaged in the process over the course of 12 months of genocide. Like, you can still see, no matter how much you try to make it seem like, you know, well, both sides are suffering to a certain degree, like, you kind of tell what the fuck's going on. One guy barely has the capacity to speak to the New York Times journalist because he has to go and find an eSIM and hope that like there is enough bars that day that he can like actually speak. He's literally been displaced 5 separate times at this point. His house was destroyed. The other side, the kibbutznik went to a Red Sea hotel, went back to normal life, still very frustrated, but very openly talking about like how after October 7, I don't think any Palestinian is like, I think all Palestinians are complicit, and I will never forgive them for making me hate them. Like, that's what he was saying. Like, so incredibly violent. Like, you have to be perfectly primed to his position to listen to him speak and go, like, to not go, what the fuck is this guy saying? It's crazy. And I know for a fact that there are way more peaceful kibbutzniks out there, okay? There are people from kibbutz Be'eri that on October 8 were speaking clearly on the humanity of Palestinians. For the record, this guy, not one of them. So the New York Times went out of their way to find a guy who was at the heart of it and is like super, you know, they could have very easily shown a different perspective from someone who is an Israeli citizen living in the kibbutz that was like, this is on the Israeli government. There are plenty more Israeli citizens that are not even living in the kibbutz that have been protesting in the streets against the Netanyahu administration, against the fact that Netanyahu is not interested in dealing with the Palestinians in any way but bloody warfare, in any way but genocide. But New York Times did not choose to show that perspective. That is deliberate. That is a deliberate way to frame the issue, to say, these guys are all peaceful guys. They were helping the Palestinians at the border. And look at their perspective now, because October 7 changed them. They changed them dramatically. To me, I think that unironically does a bad job at presenting the diversity within the Israeli public completely. The diversity of opinion even amongst the Israeli public.
טילים, מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור.
It's an entire nation out there that is responsible.
But As with any genocide, the first step was to dehumanize the enemy.
Bloodthirsty terrorists who rape and burn people alive, and it's been reported on the BBC.
What happened on October 7th included acts that were bad enough in and of themselves.
Yes.
But if you want to create a context for dehumanization and genocide, you need to go further.
The Israeli Prime Minister's spokesman just confirmed babies and toddlers were found.
Like I said this already, like there were plenty of atrocities on October 7th. 800 civilians were killed. Some were killed by the Israeli military, but the majority, the overwhelming majority, were killed by Palestinian resistance fighters. That's enough. You can just literally point to the things that happened. But that wasn't enough because Israel knew exactly what Israel was going to do. And in order to be able to achieve that goal of conducting bloody warfare, conducting a genocidal campaign, unlike the previous sieges that you can also say had that same genocidal intent ultimately, but didn't go as far as the post-October 7 genocide, they had to fucking take it one step further. They had to say they're doing mass rapes, they're barbarians that are interested, they're only there to do anti-Semitism, they're only invested in this from an anti-Semitic perspective. It is, God forbid you think about this as like people escaping a concentration camp. Do not think about it like that. That in and of itself is also anti-Semitic.
With their heads decapitated.
We saw false reports about beheaded babies, which never happened.
And then people tried to yell at me for saying, I don't agree with this. I don't believe this. I don't think there's any verifiable evidence for this. I tried to do my very best in my coverage, and I have maintained that principle since then. I did not jump to conclusions when immediately people were saying on the other side, people, and by the way, they were correct at the end of the day when they were like, oh, the Israeli military killed a bunch of Jewish Israelis themselves. I was familiar with the Hannibal doctrine, but I did not, until there was conclusive evidence, I did not dive into that side either. Okay, I said, we're going to wait and see. Same thing with this. It didn't make sense as to why Hamas would like behead babies or whatever, or engage in like a kidnapping operation where they also took a side trip, a side quest to do like mass rapes or whatever. Obviously, that also did not make sense. Is this propaganda? This was completely made up. That was completely made up. Zero punishments for those who made this up, by the way, and zero punishments were incurred for repeating it, including but not limited to the mother president of the United States of America, who obviously has a brain tumor, okay? He straight up said it, and it became a news story that it wasn't real, and the president said it, but it went nowhere. It didn't matter. Why? Because it was aligned with American interests. Understand something. Maybe years later, we make a final assessment of the situation and we go, oh, wow, that was really fucked up. Like the WMD lie that allowed us to go into Iraq. Wow, that was really fucked up. What punishments came of that? What happened? There is no deterrence whatsoever for lying like this.
About a systematic campaign of mass rape, which never happened. About babies being cut from the abdomen of their mothers, which never happened.
It did. It did happen, just not on October 7. That is one of the grossest versions of Hasbara lies. That is a documented atrocity that occurred in Sabra and Shatila. That happened in 1982 in Lebanon, in a Palestinian refugee camp. That literally did happen. It was conducted by Phalangist Christo-fascists against Palestinian refugees and Lebanese Shia populations that lived in the Sabra and Shatila camp. And not only did it happen, but also the IDF facilitated that extermination campaign. So that did happen, just not to Israelis on October 7.
And a whole series of other horrific atrocities. These were deliberately concocted official stories that were being provided in particular.
This is a complete failure of the main responsibility of news media. It was a complete and utter historic failure. It is crazy that they just like not only got away with this, but no punishments came from just repeating this lie, and people still repeat it to this day. They still repeat it to this day. We joke about, as a chatter correctly pointed out, we joke about like another horrifying blood libel that Trump engages in, where he's like, Haitians are eating cats and dogs. We are like, oh, that's crazy. We don't even treat that with the seriousness that it deserves, but that's besides the point. We understand that it's fake, and we laugh about it. But when we're doing this at the behest of Israel, when all of these democratic institutions, liberal institutions are reiterating these falsehoods in an effort to, in an effort to give